Okay, our next example is going to be negative number 2. So we have y equals 2 cosine 4x plus 3 pi. Go ahead and name your amplitude, your period, and your phase shift. Okay, good. Now be careful with this negative sign here. You can see our formula has a negative and ours has a different sign, so we need to make sure that that's accounted for there. All right, now the next thing I want you to do is you're going to start at your phase shift, add your period to get the endpoint, and then afterwards divide your period by 4 units so you can get equal increments for x and set those up. So that'll be your next step. Okay, good. So we have our starting point, we had our period, we get our ending point here, and then we also determined our increments by taking our period and dividing it by 4. So we're going to increment by pi-eighths each time. Okay, so you can see here where we set up our x values. So negative 3 pi-4 plus our increment, which on the last page is pi-eighths. It's going to be negative 5 pi-eighths. Increment pi-eighths to that, and you get here, here, here. So we have our order pair set up, and we also have our XY table plugged in. I'll give you a few minutes to, actually we can plug our values of x into these parentheses, and then go ahead and start solving these. Also, I went back, and this is the scratch work for the increments, just in case you needed to look at it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this first one together. Okay, right here we're going to cancel, we're going to come here and simplify those 4's cancel, so we have a negative 3 pi plus 3 pi, so that gives us a 0. So that's just going to be negative 2 times the cosine of 0. We're ready to go to our unit circle. Cosine of 0 is, the cosine's the x value, so what's the cosine of 0? 1. Good. So we'll have 2 times 1, which is just going to be 2. Alright, we'll come up here. We'll move to this next one. The 4/8 simplifies, or we can say 5 times 4 is 20 over 8 and simplify that. Either way you want to do that is fine. So let's say 2 times the cosine of negative 5 pi over 2 plus 3 pi. So that simplifies, and then we're going to take our time as we go through this. Need to get a common denominator here, and then when we add those together, this one's going to end up being a 6 pi over 2, which would be, when we add it together, we would just get pi halves. Okay, so we're multiplying up here. I lost my mouse. We're multiplying up here and simplifying to get negative 5 pi over 2. And then this step, we need to get a common denominator and add like terms to get pi over 2. At this point, we're ready to go to our unit circle. Cosine of pi over 2. What's the x value at pi over 2? 0. Good. So we'll plug in 0 for cosine of pi over 2. And then last step is to multiply by 2, which is just 0. Okay, let's do one more together. So we'll have 2 times the cosine. So this 4 and this 2 simplifies right here. So that's negative 4 pi over 2. It's just going to simplify to negative 2 pi plus 3 pi. What does that give us? Good. Change all these colors. So we got 2 times the cosine of pi. So at this point, we're now ready to go to our unit circle. We go to pi. What's the cosine value of pi? Negative 1. Good. So we have negative 1 times 2. So you get negative 2. Okay, so pause the video at this point. Go ahead and finish out your other 2 points. And then we're going to check our answers. What you get for the next one? 0. And then 2. And that's just going to be your calculations if you want to also pause it and just check your work on the calculations. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer these to the next page and we're going to work on sketching our graph. Okay, so we have this set up. Our increments are plotted out. Now let's use these order pairs. So negative 3 pi force 2. Then we're going to do negative 5/8 0. Negative pi halves negative 2. Negative 3 pi 8 0. And negative pi force 2. And then there you go. Okay, so also let's just practice using the transformation just like we did in the last one, and see how we can do with that. Remember, we want to, I'll write it on the next page. So if we just see this again, this is our general formula. This is the one we just worked with and sketched out. This is our transformation formula, so let's convert this equation in the black to this format. So that would give us y equals 2 cosine. Okay, if we pull out 4 for omega, we have x minus c, which is just going to be 3 pi over omega, which was 4, right? And then also we have to be careful with our sign, right? With our sign there. So now we have it in our transformation format, and thinking back to rules for transformation, now that this x by itself, we focus in on these parentheses, and what does this tell us? Shift to the left 3 pi 4 units. Right? Well, let's look back at our graph. That's exactly what we did, right? We picked it up and it shifted to the left 3 pi 4 units. So just for reiteration on the transformation,